All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the MakerDAO community call. Today is January 12th, 2021. My name is David Utrobin. I am a community member and fellow foundation employee here at MakerDAO. And I do community development and work with a ton of people here at Maker to progress through Maker. There's something like to give anybody listening an idea of the scale of the community that has evolved around Maker. We currently have 5 public weekly calls. We have 20 different teams. That includes domain teams, working groups, and also, actually, minus the 3 individual teams, we have something like 17 different working groups. And we have around 20 different programs and projects that have happened in the community so far. Oh, and I guess that includes grantee recipients. Yeah, there's over 30 different community tools. Yeah, there's just a total Cambrian explosion of stuff happening around Maker. And so welcome to the community call. Yeah, that was a little bit of a tangent that I usually don't go on. But yeah, as I said, my name is David. And we use this call to go over the week in MakerDAO. And often we have guests on these calls. So for example, next week we're going to be having Alan Nienberg, who is the founder of Yield Protocol, and Yield Protocol has actually just created a fixed rate product on top of MakerDAO. So Alan's going to be coming on next week to demo and share that. I think they're launching on mainnet sometime this week or early next week. But yeah, today's going to be a simple one. We're going to be going through Maker Relay 27, which is actually one of the working groups, the governance communications, soon to be domain team, hopefully, puts together the Maker Relay 27 for the community. It lists all of the active votes. It gives an update on all of the different current events that are happening. And so, yeah, today is going to be a pretty simple call. Feel free to jump in with any questions, with any topics that you'd like to discuss or dive more deeply into. This is a community call. Definitely happy to make it conversational, invite people on screen, and anything like that. So feel free to interrupt me and jump in at any moment. So for this part of the call, I'm just going to share my screen and walk us through Maker Relay. And try to give some additional context to the various things happening here at MakerDAO. All right, so welcome to Maker Relay. So before we get started, there is sorry about that. There is a really great participation tools page that's on the community development portal. And it actually links to a number of different sites that MKR voters can use to get some basic stats around the DIPEG, around the Maker protocol itself, around liquidations, around vaults, etc., etc. So if you are looking for information as a voter or as a casual observer, definitely make use of this resource page. So yeah, this week in governance polls. Governance polls, first off, will end after 3 days this week. They were posted on Monday, and they're going to be ending on Thursday, January 14th at 1600 UTC. I believe this works out to be around 12 noon, pretty much the time it is right now. So yeah, we have a number of different governance polls. There's 2 different sets of governance polls. There's kind of the regular weekly governance polls, and then the MIP inclusion polls. For the regular weekly polls, we have a rates proposal, which has been put up by the rate setting group. It's a small working group within the risk domain team, and they have actually posted a thread that better outlines these changes. And so if you want a quick view of what's being changed, ETH-A and ETH-B are going up slightly. WBTC-A is being decreased by 50 basis points. MANA is being decreased by 5%. YFI-A is being decreased by 3%. And AVE is being decreased by 2%. And if you're interested in the reasoning behind the rates and kind of the methodology behind the rate setting group. I highly encourage you to read through not only this post, but a number of posts that have been put up in the past. Basically, they try to balance not just risk considerations, but also understand the rates environment in DeFi as a whole, and to help set competitive rates as well. So it is really cool what this team is doing, and it's nice that we've transitioned to this model in comparison to what we had before, which was MKR voters voting on individual vault rates pretty much every week, which was clearly not sustainable when you have like 20 different vault types. So really cool to see this. That's the first governance poll. If it passes, it's going to go to an executive vote next Friday. There's a handful of Oracles related governance polls. They are to whitelist Gnosis on a number of oracles, as well as whitelisting Set Protocol on a number of oracles. And this is especially cool since both Gnosis and Set Protocol are actually feed providers for the MakerDAO oracles. And they are, dog fooding the product by using the oracles themselves. And just as a quick note, there's I believe over 25 different feed providers for Maker oracles. So we have some of the most decentralized and strong oracles in the space, especially considering the fact that they are used by Maker itself, which oversees, I think, over $3 billion in assets locked inside of the protocol. So really, I really think that oracles are kind of underappreciated at Maker. And so, these are the two governance polls related to that. We have one for collateral onboarding, which is to add the UniV2 WBTC ETH LP token as a collateral type. The very first LP token, which was the ETH DAI LP token on Uniswap V2, was actually added, I believe, last month with a 3 million debt ceiling. And of course, this one would also be added with a pretty low debt ceiling, pending some audits on I believe the Oracle side of the smart contracts. But not going to comment too much there. But it's really excited, and I think the smart contracts team actually mentioned that one of their main focuses this year is to get a lot more LP tokens on as collateral. They have a really great property as collateral in the Maker portfolio, in that they're less volatile than any one of those assets on the asset pair. So, for example, ETH DAI is kind of by definition less volatile than ETH alone, and so having less volatile assets in the Maker asset pool is really great and healthy for the DAI peg. It splits up the risk pretty nicely. There is also is this a signal request? Signal requests are typically on the forum, so let me just, no, this is on here. Okay, so I guess this is like a that's so interesting. This is the first time I saw this type listed. So investigate implementation of a WBTC B vault type with a lower liquidation ratio. So let's I'm going to quickly dig in with you guys. So this is a signal request. It mostly resolved to be yes. There was a very similar kind of thing that happened with the ETH A vault type, where there was an ETH B vault type cited. Okay, so interesting. So this is going to be basically asking the risk team to create an assessment and a proposal for WBTC-B, from what I can understand, with a lower liquidation ratio. So this is pretty cool, given the success of ETH-B. And the last two regular governance polls are one to adjust the system surplus buffer. A number of different mandated actors that are part of the various domain teams at MakerDAO have actually expressed really big support for adjusting the surplus buffer upward. At the moment, it's sitting at 4 million DAI. And when you have 1.3 billion outstanding DAI, Having only 4 million DAI in your surplus buffer is kind of not enough from the eyes of at least the risk professionals in the MakerDAO community, as well as the others. So on the forum, the leading vote was to increase it to 10 million DAI, and I believe that is what the governance poll is polling for as well. It's an increase to 10 as a start, from 4 to 10. And then the last regular governance poll is to adjust a flap auction parameter called BEG, and this actually came about and is a pretty urgent thing to change since we began seeing zero bids on surplus auctions. And if you've been around the maker community in the last year, zero bid is kind of a scary word because that's actually a very similar attack to what happened in March, when a ton of the liquidated ETH vaults were attacked with a zero bid attack, and basically caused the Maker protocol to have like an $8 million loss, and MKR tokens were actually issued to cover that. But that was last year. And so a community member actually saw and brought up the fact that there were attempts at zero bids on surplus auctions, and proposed this solution where the BEG, which is the minimum bid increase for the surplus auctions, to go from 2% to 4%. So basically, if you want to bid past the first bidder, you have to have a 4% change in what your bid is, in order to bid. And so this is basically to combat the zero bidders. And also part of this is to increase the bid duration from 30 minutes to 60 minutes. And this is because during periods of prices falling and like massive liquidations, Maker protocol actually collects a lot of fees in a short amount of time because of the liquidation penalty. And those fees, if the surplus buffer is full, those fees translate into a lot of surplus auctions happening in a short amount of time. And in order for them to kind of happen more quickly and more efficiently, to give people, not for them to happen more quickly, more efficiently, but to give keepers the ability to bid on all of them and participate on all of them, the bid duration is being increased from 30 minutes to 60 minutes, basically ensuring that they have decent bids on all of them in an event where there's a ton of auctions happening at once. I close that. Yeah, so those are all the regular governance polls. And then we have a set of governance polls that are related to January's monthly governance cycle. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with the governance cycles at Maker, there's a weekly governance cycle and a monthly one. The monthly one primarily handles any Mips and MIP-related proposals, while the weekly governance polls, the weekly cycle covers more expedited items, things like collateral onboarding, Oracle whitelisting, and other miscellaneous things. And the reason why these both exist at the moment is so that Maker governance can remain flexible and be able to act in short amounts of time and not rely on a full monthly cycle. But the monthly cycle definitely helps filter out bad proposals and gives a fair amount of due process to all of the different fairly complex proposals that are happening at MakerDAO. And so just to list a bunch of them that are up, formally submitted for this month and are in the inclusion poll phase, there is the technical MIP for the peg stability module. The peg stability module is already implemented. It already has a $30 million DAI debt ceiling. And so this MIP just formally kind of approves the spec. MIP 30 is crop join. It's a farmable CUSDC adapter. This basically creates a USDC vault type that uses CUSDC instead, so that vault users can collect the rewards, the farming rewards from Compound, while also using their Maker vaults at the same time. So this is really highly anticipated by the community, and so I'm excited to see that submitted for this month. There are actually 3 different personnel onboarding Mips. One of them is to onboard Sebastian Deriveau to the risk domain team. This one on the votes is about 50-50. I haven't seen any comments on the forum as to why any of the MKR holders voted no against Sebastian. I do want to make a shout out. If you had voted no, it would be really great to comment in the forum thread, kind of explaining the reason. That would be super helpful. As for onboarding Sam McPherson to the smart contracts domain team and Juan to the operational support domain team, those both so far are almost completely a yes, from around 17 or 18,000 MKR so far. Besides those onboarding proposals, there is also a declaration of intent around a governance communications domain team. So a number of domain teams already exist, like the smart contracts domain team, Oracle's risk, operational support, the governance domain team. And so the governance communications domain is precisely what it sounds like. It's a team of people in the community that are focused on communicating on behalf of to all the different communications types around the DAO. And so they actually produce a number of things like this Maker Relay. Technically speaking, this community call is in their umbrella, and they're doing a number of really interesting things as well. So feel free to read through that. That's just a declaration of intent. The domain team is not formally created just yet. It's still in the conception phase. So this is just getting some early signal from MKR holders as to whether they want this or not. And then the final one is also a declaration of intent around the Maker protocol cover with Nexus Mutual. Nexus Mutual is actually a insurance provider, and so the content of the coverage is covered in the forum thread. So read through that if you're interested. But yeah, that's also just a declaration of intent. It's not actually going to happen if this gets voted in. This is just MKR voters saying, yes, we want you to do further work on this, and we probably will vote it in. But yeah, we've definitely seen declarations of intent not work out. But regardless, yeah, that's what's happening. So check it out. All right, so that's it for the current active votes. I don't believe there is a executive vote happening right now. All of them have been passed. Yeah, the governing proposal was passed, and everything else is old. So yeah, only governance polls happening right now. The next executive vote that's happening is gonna be up on Friday. So look out for that. So a brief update on what happened last week. Last week, the USDC PSM was active. Well, that wasn't last week. That was on December 28th. But last week, we had a debt ceilings executive vote. And this actually raised the PSM from 3 million to 30. Yeah, so, and this as well, it raised the ETH-A debt ceiling from 590 to 740. And it raised the USDC-A debt ceiling from 485 to 555, and likewise the global debt ceiling by the sum of all of these. So yeah, that's basically what happened last week. Pretty standard slow start to the year. So there's a number of active and relevant signal requests that are happening right now. One of them is rolling out the debt ceiling instant access module for more vaults than just the ETH-B vault. This is definitely going to be a topic of conversation and something that will be happening in MakerDAO for this year. I do see a world where all of the different vaults have their respective debt ceiling instant access modules. This makes them a lot easier to manage as a governing body. And so definitely check those out. And the very first debt ceiling instant access module was implemented and is running on the ETH vault, and it has done so successfully. And it's actually come up to its maximum debt ceiling already. And so it's really cool to see that in action. There's also a signal request around an interim DAO operating budget. So as you know, the Maker Foundation historically has been the one bootstrapping and paying for expenses around developing the Maker protocol. And so this year and the coming years after that, but really primarily this year, there's going to be a shift where people working on the Maker protocol are going to go from being paid by the foundation to being paid directly by the protocol. And in order to do this, a number of things have actually already happened. So there's already been the acceptance of a MIP called the protocol DAI transfer, and this gives Maker governance the ability to transfer DAI from the surplus buffer to any specified Ethereum address. And then besides this, there's also the development of something called the keg. The keg is actually a distribution mechanism. It takes DAI out of the surplus buffer and distributes it to a number of different kind of funds or like submodules that are then used in turn to pay for operating expenses and other interesting things. Actually, a handful of weeks ago, we had Seb Ventures on the call, and he actually talked about his MIP that proposed one of these little funds called the Strategic Reserves Fund. And so, yeah, there's a lot of evolution going on around how MakerDAO as a protocol is going to manage the revenue that they produce and the expenses that they have to pay out in order to develop and continue to grow the protocol. And so this is this signal request is a temporary measure. So since there are things in the community that are happening that the foundation cannot work on, for example, the peg stability module is a completely community funded and produced project, and so the foundation is not contributing to that. And so the interim DAO operating budget proposes a multi-sig with a number of proposed members, and basically says before the keg is up, before we have like a better infrastructure for paying out expenses, let's have this multi-sig with a discretionary budget that helps pay for these expenses. And so it seems like a no-brainer to me. But definitely read through, join the discussion, and yeah, we'll see how that goes. All right, and then the next signal request is increasing the dust parameter. So this has been a topic of discussion for a while because of the reality of high gas prices in the Ethereum environment. And since there are high gas prices, it prices out people that are opening vaults with very small sums. And the dust parameter, for those of you that don't know, is the minimum amount of DAI that you can create a vault with. So at the moment, I believe it is 100 DAI. So at the moment, you can't create a vault and borrow, 1 DAI from it or 20 DAI from it. You have to borrow or generate a minimum of 100 DAI from your vault. And so because the gas prices have continued to get worse, yeah, the dust increase is being considered by the community to go from 100 DAI to 500 DAI. There's another side to this. So besides the expense, oh, it's at 500 now already. I didn't know that. Okay, sorry about that. So that was my mistake. So it's 500 already. And the signal request is, should we increase it even higher? Yeah, thanks for that, Peyton. Appreciate it. And so there's another side to this. It's also for liquidators. So when a vault actually becomes under collateralized and is subject to liquidation, sometimes it's not even worth the gas cost to bite and liquidate the vault because it's such a small amount of DAI generated or DAI debt. And so that's another side to this issue. And so MKR, forum members and MKR voters are currently being polled for this. So yeah, gonna leave that there. And then lastly, posted, I believe, just yesterday is a signal request to adjust the ETH-A debt ceiling. So the ETH-A debt ceiling was just recently put up to, I believe, 740 million. And in the last 3 days, in the last 3 days since 2 days ago, so in the last 5 days, 50% of that additional headroom had been consumed. And so this is a signal request saying, hey, should we raise it even further? And it looks like 64% of votes went towards having a solid billion debt ceiling for the ETH-A vault type. So yeah, those are the 4 different signal requests that are active and happening now on the forum. And let me just quickly check chat. Yeah, cool. There's no questions or anything. All right, so moving forward, let's do some updates around Mips. There was a weekly Mips update posted on Monday. It covers what's happening this week and next week. I already mentioned some of the stuff. So this week we're having inclusion polls. Next week there's going to be a bundled governance poll. And so, yeah, let me go through this, though, as Maker Relay has it. So there's a number of different MIPS still in the request for comment phase. So these are MIPS that are especially ripe for community feedback. So if you have any interest or in any of these, definitely encourage you to leave your comments, leave your thoughts, leave ways that you think the MIP can be improved in the comments. The MIP authors definitely appreciate any feedback that you give. So the 5 different MIPS and one subproposal in the request for comment phase include the DSS Gov governance contract redesign. This is a huge project in the making, and basically, yeah, it completely redesigns the Maker governance contract. One of the best features of this redesign is not needing to bundle executives, so being able to have concurrent executives. Really looking forward to that, as well as a number of different improvements and designs. And we dove a little bit deeper into this in previous calls. We actually had Derek Flossman come on the community call and talk a bit more deeply about the governance contract redesign. So feel free to just search for that video, and you'll get a better idea of all of the details that I will not dive into today. There is also MIP 31 and MIP 32, which were submitted by a new community member, Alexis. So MIP 31 is an active reserve AMM. This basically is a similar idea to the surplus buffer or having something like a strategic reserves fund. It's basically a form of reserve that would be a tradable MKR DAI pair. And so, yeah, it's a really interesting idea. It's a bit ahead of its time. It has not a lot of forum engagement from what I saw. I would love to push that and push it towards the community and ask people to give some feedback around it. It is a very, very interesting idea, though. MIP 32 is the peg stability module for compound mixed exposure. This basically provides an extension for the PSM that would let it take the USDC within and convert it to CUSD, basically so that the Maker protocol can earn a revenue from the from the compound farming rewards. And then the last one, which was the most recently posted one, is the KEG streaming payment module, which I had just been talking about. So this is really exciting. I wonder if there's any graphics in it. No, there was one. Forum thread with a really cool graphic in it. Let me just pull it up so that I could show it to you guys. Yeah, so it was under Flapper distributor, and it gave a really great, really great graphic here. Let me just come up here. So this is the idea, and the keg, from my understanding, works very similar, where as you could see, there's a system surplus, and from that surplus, instead of going straight into the Flapper, which would burn MKR, it would go into the Flapper distributor, and then Maker Governance could set different weights for different buckets. So there could be a strategic reserves fund, an operations fund, Maker burn, and any what was the term in the traditional finance? It was CSR, corporate social responsibility, right? Some charity fund, and so it gives a lot more flexibility to Maker Governance to do things with the revenue from the protocol, and so that is exactly what the KEG streaming payments module proposes to do. So this is a technical MIP, so there is some code here that anybody can go and review. So yeah, highly suggest reading through these. And if you do have a special request and want to go more deeply into any of these MIPS on something like a community call, definitely reach out to me. I'm happy to reach out to the MIP author, for example, here like Sam, and to organize a call that goes into the details and the nitty gritty of these. So definitely don't be shy. I'm always looking for requests like that. And then the one sub-proposal inside of the RFC phase is for onboarding a new collateral type backed by B protocol. This is a declaration of intent, and yeah, it's a new collateral type. It's kind of nothing like any of the others in that it's backed by B protocol, and B protocol is a special thing in its own right that helps make her liquidation system function a little bit better, and actually increases like the liquidity of the overall Keeper ecosystem. And so yeah, check that out. All right, so now we're going to move into some team updates. A lot of this info was lifted from the Thursday governance and risk call, and pieced together from information on the forums. So big props again to the team that puts together Maker Relay. So let me quickly read through this. So this is from the smart contracts team. We have MIP 21 going into Kovan for testing this week with an executive this Friday. I believe MIP 21. Let me not believe. Let me just verify. So MIP 21. That's none of these. I don't know. Where is MIP 21? Maybe if I put no space between them. Real world assets. Okay. So this is the MIP that sets up some infrastructure for 6S's first real world asset collateral. And I believe, I don't know if it's to do with the liquidation around this, or if it's to do with like the adapter for it. But basically testing this MIP that has some sort of, it's a technical MIP. There's some stuff going on inside of it. It's going to Kovan this week for testing, with an executive this Friday for mainnet if everything goes well. So I believe that's actually the addition of 6S's first real world asset collateral to Maker. So if I'm understanding that correctly, that's going to be really exciting. That's going to be the very first real world asset on the Maker protocol. The team will be focusing on MIP 14, 25, and 30 next. You know what? Note to self, I'm going to ask the team to throw some titles to these MIPs, because I'm not 100% sure what each of these are off the top of my head. But I'm going to, yeah, so the protocol die transfer, that's one. What's 25? The die flashment module, that's really great. And then 30. is the C USDC adapter. Really cool. Yeah, so those are the three main focuses for the smart contracts team. End of 2020 was pretty aggressive, and we lost some smart contract engineers. We'll need to pace ourselves and train up more people to have 4 collateral types a month, 1 MIP, and a set of community initiatives. So, yeah, that implicitly sounds like we are looking for smart contracts engineers. So, if you are a smart contracts engineer and you want to work on Maker, reach out. Sam M, aka also known as Hexanaut, is working on the UI for the PSM, and actually a few updates on that. A QuantStep audit report for the PSM was just released, actually today. And likewise, Sam wrote a little update on the PSM here, and I'm going to quickly read it here on the call. So now that we have the final QuantStamp report, we can move to the final phase and begin raising the debt ceiling towards the previously approved 500 million mark. In the interest of balancing risk with the previous governance target of 500 million, the DAO Autonomous Group has agreed that we will slowly raise the debt ceiling with the LERP module over the next several weeks. So for the next community executive, the debt ceiling for the PSM is going to be set to 80 million, along with a LERP module, which raises the debt ceiling by 35 million a week over the next 12 weeks. So the date for the monthly community executive is to be determined, but I'm expecting end of January or beginning of February. In either case, this gives us 2+ weeks of PSM testing at the 30 million level. The stablecoin vaults will be set to 0 debt ceiling at a later date, which is to be determined by the risk team. And so just to clarify, this plan went over with Long for Wisdom, who is the governance facilitator, and Primosh, who is the risk team domain facilitator, to confirm that it's a reasonable course of action. So it's not an autonomous decision made by that group itself, so fear not. So yeah, the governance and risk call last Thursday also highlighted a list of outstanding tasks for making the PSM robust, including documentation, including a UI that's being worked on, including moving, scuttling old collateral types, and also including liquidating the old collateral types into the PSM, which is primarily the USDC A collateral type. And from my understanding and my conversations with people in the chat, this is actually still the plan. So the PSM will get expanded, and right now Sam is actually working on something called, let me actually pull it up here. He's working on the Psm Flipper, so if you're interested in that, I'll just link that in here. So he's working on the Psm Flipper that basically takes USDC A vault positions and converts them through the PSM. So that's the smart contracts team update. There's also a risk team update. So there is, a vote happening for surplus auction parameter adjustments. That's the BEG and the auction duration that's being updated. Their analysts finished collateral evaluation for TBTC. And as mentioned on Thursday's call, the conclusion recommends a reevaluation at a later point after the project has had some time to live and liquidity picks up. At the current moment, TBTC is being red lighted. And exactly for that reason, there's not a lot of liquidity. And with what the current status is, I think the risk team's recommended debt ceiling levels around 300,000. And so they don't think it's worth it to do it at this point. So that's the update there. There is a CUSDC crop join risk evaluation in the works. Monet Supply posted a signal request for increasing the dust parameter, which was also recommended by the risk team. Andy is working on refreshing Maker portfolio value at risk model. So this would help define the surplus buffer and risk mitigation during the bull run. There is a new report from Rate Setting Working Group that's out, and that's actually behind the governance poll that's happening right now. And then lastly, real world asset progress on due diligence. The team needs a lawyer since that expertise isn't there yet. I believe that there is someone in the community, I believe his name's Marvin, who's being plugged in to help do some consulting around that. So looking forward to that. And so, yeah, that's it for the risk team update. And here's an Oracle's team update. LP tokens are the focus for collateral onboarding going forward, and that's coming from Nick. So he is the Oracle team's domain facilitator, but also he works very closely with collateral onboarding and the smart contracts team in general. So LP tokens are the focus for collateral onboarding going forward. We need a formal audit before we start raising ceilings on LP tokens. And so we're waiting on that. And in the meantime, 10 whitelisting proposals are up right now, and there's 17 in the backlog. So Oracle's are firing on all cylinders in terms of growth at the Maker protocol. And likewise, Oracle's began work on the real-world asset Oracle last week. All right, so that's it for the team updates and kind of the current event updates. Here's a quick overview of the state of the peg. So Vishesh has not graced us with a state of the peg on the governance call in a little while. So here I'll do it on the community call. The peg is actually looking good. So looks stable with a few spikes within a frothy market. But if you look at the 7-day volume weighted average price, we are coming very, very close to $1. So it's exciting. And so over the last 7 days, we've had 1.6 billion in DAI volume. That's a billion with a B this last week. And yeah, we're looking at a 1.001 volume weighted average price. So that's really cool. Here's a quick snapshot of of the various DAI outstanding and from which vault types. You can always go to makerburn.com to check out this list live. And we are slowly crawling up to 1.5 billion, soon to be 2 billion DAI outstanding. I wonder how long that's going to take. Yeah, I'd love to see it. Let me see. Yeah, so ETH Vault's largest collateralization bucket is at 390% after the past 24 hours. It makes sense to have vaults well protected. Yeah, so that's a really great sign because there is a lot of DAI outstanding, and having the majority of it, or the largest portion of it, sitting in positions that are almost 4 times collateralized, that's really great. That's a positive sign for me. So a very large liquidation wall is at $787 ETH at 31 million DAI liquidated if nobody changes their positions. But as a reminder, as prices change, we've actually seen Vault users react react pretty quickly, since vaults give the user the ability to add collateral or pay back DAI on a whim. Whenever there is price action, usually there's a lot of defensive movement in individual vault positions. So it says 31 million at 787 now, but if ETH were to crash to $800 right now, I guarantee you this 31 million will probably drop by some like substantial amount. But regardless, this is a pretty nice metric to see. All right, ETHB has a large collateralization bucket at 130%. This sounds very risky. There's around, am I seeing that right? So there's around 9 million DAI that's sitting at 132%. So for information, ETHB vaults actually get liquidated under 130. So that's quite interesting. It's dominated by one large vault. So I'm curious how that vault manages. If they're just like programmatically keeping it very close to the edge, or if it's like it's got to be some sort of automated vault though. With that kind of money, almost 9 million. That's intense. As of yesterday, when the Maker relay was being put together, there was 304,000 DAI out for liquidations. Most auctions seem to be functioning well. Yeah, apart from the zero bids on the Maker surplus auctions, the auctions have been doing well. The I haven't seen anything reported that like would alarm anybody. But it's good that they're working, so it's a positive thing. The largest pools outside of Compound, CurveFi, and Uniswap account for 45% of protocol locked DAI. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So, yeah, I'm curious if people think that this is what the risk associated with protocol locked DAI is, because I imagine in the future there's going to be DAI locked all over the place, and that inevitably things will happen. DAI will get stuck. But yeah, I'm anyway curious about people's like view of the total DAI being locked elsewhere. All right, so let's move into some more general updates from the community. Maker Forum deep dive. L Pro, aka Frank Cruz, made a really great post on the Maker Forum for the new year. Stay grounded, Maker community. Stay grounded. Recently, MKR and ETH experienced a lot of price appreciation, and this is El Progreso's message to us saying, stay humble, keep your eye on the point, and it's to create a very well-run financial protocol on Ethereum. What happens if DAI loses its peg and goes to $2, for example? So Blue Cat began a discussion about what ifs. I believe this is a forum thread, so check it out. Probably some interesting discussions happening there. There's also an informal poll about what is the mission vision of MakerDAO, as polled by by Seb. So this is totally up to the community. So I think historically the Maker Foundation has set a lot of the language behind the mission and vision of MakerDAO, and so seeing this transition to the community setting its own mission and vision is pretty cool, and seeing that the votes are very much in close alignment to the original vision is also a nice thing to see. Just some articles. Explica what is DAI and why is cryptocurrency presented as an alternative to obtain dollars. American Banker, how decentralized finance could reshape banking. The Block posted a guide to the Block's data dashboard, which includes things like DAI. Crypto Slate, MKR rips 80% higher over the past week after extended bear market against Ethereum. That's really cool as well. And actually, I saw one more thing today, which was, I don't have it ready, so I'm not going to pull it up. But the OCC put out, the OCC's Brian Brooks put out an op-ed about decentralized finance, which sounded very positive. So I'm probably going to put that in the links to articles on next week's Maker Relay. And yeah. With that, we have a tweet of the week. MakerDAO is the first, best, and longest example of a DAO. As it grows, more MKR holders get educated and incentivized to participate in governance. The more decentralized it will get. So the key is distribution with education, and I think that that's a huge goal. Definitely behind the work that I do and behind the work that a lot of different contributors at MakerDAO do. There's a huge emphasis on education. There's a huge emphasis on accessibility. So if you are a casual viewer or a casual participant, it shouldn't be hard for you to plug in and really find information and contribute. So yeah, education, definitely a huge value here at the Maker community. And yeah, I'll leave it to anybody here on the call clicking on Maker Relay and looking through the different events that are happening. There is a community collateral onboarding call that happens on Wednesdays. There's a governance and risk call that happens on Thursdays, and various other community events, and also hackathon participation. But I think the best way that you can get plugged into events is actually getting the Maker public events calendar link. So if you use Google Calendar, it would be really easy for you to just upload that public calendar and overlay it on top of your own, so you can always see what's happening. But yeah, we have around 8 minutes left. That was Maker Relay episode 27. Again, I'm David. So, pleasure to have gone through that with all of you. And let me know if there's any questions in the chat, any questions about the stuff that was covered, and any requests to go deeper on any of these. So, yeah. And with that, I guess I'm going to end the call in a few seconds here. I'm actually going to post the OCC.gov thing. All right, well, thank you, everybody.